Okay, well, welcome to the grandchildren and to many other children and indeed some adults who I believe have been watching some of these, but here we go again, and this time we're going to have another Percy the Park Keeper story. This one is called After the Storm, if you can see that one there. Why have I chosen this one? Well, with the way the weather is at the moment, it seems a little bit more appropriate, so here we go, After the Storm. Percy the Park Keeper couldn't sleep. Outside his hut a great storm was raging, with thunder and lightning and pouring rain. Percy wasn't frightened by the thunder, and he loved to watch the lightning as it lit up the whole park. He didn't even mind the rain, but there was one thing that Percy didn't like. He didn't like the wind. It blew down fences in the park and ripped branches off the trees. He didn't like it one bit. Oh dear, he sighed as he watched from his window. The wind tugged at the trees, making them creak and groan. It looks like I'm going to be a bit busy tomorrow. He pulled his pillow over his head and tried to get some sleep. Percy was up early in the morning. The wind had stopped and the sky was clear. Percy loaded up his wheelbarrow with all the things that he would need to make repairs and clear up after the storm. Then he set off to inspect the damage. He felt happy as he took deep breaths of the fresh, clean air, and perhaps the damage wouldn't be too bad. But sadly, he was wrong. Something dreadful had happened. A great big oak tree that had stood by itself on top of a little hill had been blown over by the storm. The giant tree had been one of Percy's favourites. Now it looked very sad, lying on its side, with its mass of tangly roots sticking up into the air. But it wasn't just one of Percy's favourite trees. Some of Percy's animal friends lived there, and now their homes were wrecked, and Percy hurried up to the fallen tree. And there you can see the tree fallen down with some of Percy's little friends sitting by the side of it. And for the grandchildren will know we get trees like this come down sometimes. They turn into other habitats for other animals as well, but it's always sad when it happens. Anyway, back to the story. Now the animals were gathered by the tree, looking cross and unhappy, and when they saw Percy, everyone started talking at once. Percy sat down with his friends and listened as they told him how the storm had brought down the great tree. And now we have nowhere to live, said the badger. Some of us lived in the tree and some of us lived under it, but we are all homeless now. And some of the rabbits looked close to tears, and Fox was very sniffy, and Percy passed him his handkerchief and the fox blew his nose. Percy stood up. We'll just have to find you somewhere else to live, he said. Come on everybody, jump in my wheelbarrow. The animals felt better now that Percy was with them. First he took them to the pine wood, but nobody wanted to live there. It's too dark, squeaked Mice. Too gloomy, said the hedgehog. So Percy took them to the shrubbery, but nobody wanted to live in the shrubbery either. No big trees, complained the squirrels. No big roots, complained the rabbits. Never mind, said Percy. We'll try across the stream. Percy began to push the heavy wheelbarrow over the little bridge that crossed the stream. But as he got to the middle of the bridge, two things happened. Percy stumbled, and the wheelbarrow decided to see what it would be like to be a boat. And splash! In they went. As you can see, if you can see from there, there's a wheelbarrow going into the stream with little animals on it. Suddenly, Percy and his friends found themselves drifting downstream to where the stream opened out into a lake. Percy stood up and looked around. We'll have to paddle back to shore, he said, but then something caught his eye. No, wait, said Percy. Let's paddle across to the other side of the lake. I have an idea. The animals looked puzzled. What was Percy up to? Slowly they paddled the wheelbarrow across the lake. Here we are, said Percy. The squirrels jumped ashore and tied up the wheelbarrow to the roots of an enormous hollow tree that grew by the water's edge. Now this is my plan, said Percy. Everyone gathered around as Percy explained his idea. Is everybody clear? And everybody nodded. Right, let's get to work. They began by unloading all Percy's tools and the planks of wood from the wheelbarrow, and then Percy explained exactly what he wanted each one to do. He showed the badger how to use a saw, and he showed the squirrels how to knock in nails. The fox drilled holes and the rabbit screwed in screws. The mice were kept very busy fetching and carrying for everybody else. At lunchtime, they took a short break to share some of Percy's peanut butter sandwiches, and then everybody got busy again. At long last, their work was finished. A very tired Percy stood back to admire their handiwork. Now the squirrels had a brand new home, and so did the mice. The rabbits had a new home, and so did Badger, and the fox, and the hedgehog. In fact, every one of Percy's friends had a fine new place to live. Well done, everybody, said Percy. This is the best tree house I have ever seen. What about you, Percy? Called the Badger. Aren't you going to join us? Percy smiled. I think I'll stick to my old hut, he said. Besides, said Percy, taking an acorn out of his pocket, he said, I still have one job left to do back at that little hill. And taking an acorn out of his pocket, what do you think he's going to do with that acorn? Well, mighty oaks from little acorns grow. And that's exactly what Percy would have done, looking after not just the animals in the park, but the park itself and the trees. Plant the acorn, and in years to come, other animals will be living in that old tree that Percy planted. And that's the story. Percy and After the Storm.